Hey guys, we are live. It's Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern-ish. A little bit late today on the first show, but we'll be here every weekday, Monday through Friday from now on, 3 p.m. Eastern live for NBA Tip-Off. I'm your host, Steve Merrill, and we are ready to start the regular season, guys. Part two of the regular season. I've got Skee Profit, I've got Tony Finn, I've got Rob Veno. We've got a great lineup here, and we have our first two regular season reboot games of the year going later tonight on Thursday. We're going to get to those in depth here in the show. I think we're also going to get to some future picks maybe at the beginning of the show here for those of you looking to get those future tickets in before 6:30 Eastern tonight when that first game tips off. And let's start off. Let's go around the horn here. We'll keep it casual here, guys. We'll introduce everybody. I'll start with you, Skee Profit, WagerTalk.com. I know you specialize in NBA hoops, Skee. How have you been doing? How was the lockdown for you? I know you guys did some preview shows the last couple of weeks with my buddy Andy Lang from the NASCAR show hosting. So we might cover some of the same stuff, but we got a lot of new viewers, so I figure we'll do that. What's going on, Skee? What are your thoughts going into opening night here?
I'm doing all right, and I'm excited. I mean, I had WNBA for a couple of days, but now I have NBA. It's the best of both worlds to me, so I'm excited for this. And opening night, I mean, Lakers Clippers, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, exactly. They didn't mess around, right? They gave us the big boys right off the bat, and I don't think that was a coincidence. They want to come back full throttle. You know, by the way, guys, I did the NASCAR show yesterday on Wednesday, as we do each week, and I'd mentioned that the Thursday night race last week was the lowest TV ratings in the past 21 years for any NASCAR race, and it went head-to-head with that Yankees National game, and that was one of the highest rating regular season baseball games, I think, in recent memory, and according to the odds makers and the bookmakers, too, one of the heaviest bet games. So I can only imagine what the action is going to be like tonight on Thursday with the NBA, especially as Skee said, that huge late night game between the Lakers and Clippers with LA in Orlando, the two LA teams playing in Orlando. Rob Veno, let me bring you in, my man, a veteran in the industry. I've known you for a long time. What are your thoughts here? Just some general thoughts heading into the reboot of the NBA season.
Yeah, I'll echo Skee's sentiment of excited to have it back, guys, because, you know, prior to the shutdown, NBA, not only this show, but personally for clients, I was at a heck of an NBA role up until the point of the shutdown. Almost hated to see that happen, but now we get the reboot, and it's been a good 30 days, Steve, or so that we've had to kind of adjust and feel out what this situation was going to be like. I think I've got a pretty good grasp on it. I'm going to open the season tomorrow with plays for clients. I'll have it up today, but a Friday play is going up immediately, and there'll probably be a couple more to follow. So, yeah, the information has trickled in. We're ready to roll, so I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of TVs tuned into this pair of games tonight.
Yeah, and speaking of plays ready to go, right now if you go to WagerTalk.com, Skee Profit, who we are talking to live right now, has his big NBA profit total, 36-21 run on WagerTalk.com. You can get all these guys' best bets there as well. Tony Finn, speaking of reboots, I know you had a reboot with your computer here a few minutes ago, so maybe that was in line with rebooting the NBA season. What are your thoughts heading into the reboot tonight?
Well, first, I'm certain that it was Skee Profit's posse that was sabotaging my computer because he didn't want to. He knows that I'm here to strike until I'm paid my sawbucks from you before the world went dark. I tell you what, I'll lift my strike for a few minutes. Steve, everything's good. I mean, it's a good day. We woke up, get another chance to screw something up and make our wives mad or our girlfriends mad, boyfriends mad, whatever the case may be of this panel. And I'm excited about the NBA being back.
See, I've already lost a bet as the show begins. Not that you wouldn't wake up, Tony, but my money was that you didn't go to bed all night. So
well,
I've already lost the wager.
Now I'm sure that Merrill's in on with Skee. Now you know what I'm doing all night too.
There we go. I checked Slack late last night, and the only two that were online like at 2 a.m. were you and me, Tony. So I know our schedules. We work the other 9 to 5, I believe. I'm on Hawaiian time, I tell people, but it'll be good tonight because I'll be fresh watching that Clippers-Lakers game into the wee hours of the morning. It won't be a problem at all.
You're now on Wager Talk time, and that I'm telling you right now, Wager Talk time is there's long days and that's all I'm going to say. Long days and Skee Profit.
Yeah, I probably missed my calling not doing the Korean baseball. I could have watched those games live at 5 a.m. Eastern time, but I decided to stay away from that. But I know Andrew McGinnis and Dave Koken, they've been tearing it up at KBO, and it's gone right into Major League Baseball. And they, of course, were on right before us. 2 p.m. Eastern every day is the baseball show. 3 p.m. Eastern here, the NBA tip-off show. And we will be here every weekday going forward. Tomorrow and Friday, 3 p.m. And as Rob said, it's a big card tomorrow and Friday. He's already got a best bet lined up for Friday at WagerTalk.com. Skeet's got his big game up there. Tony's got his best bets ready to go. WagerTalk.com. It's very simple. You one-stop shop. You make some money tonight. You watch and you win. Let's keep it casual, guys. We'll go around. I'll tell you what. Before we get to the futures, I'll just ask you all a brief, quick question. It might apply. It might not. I'll start with you, Skee. Have you given much look into the NBA preseason? Have you handicapped any of those games? I personally have not messed with betting the NBA preseason. I've kept an eye on it, obviously, for handicapping purposes. But, if you have nothing, that's fine. But I was just going to ask each of you if you have any quick takeaways maybe from what you've seen, because this is the reboot of the regular season, but we have had some preseason games the last couple weeks in the bubble. Skee, any takeaways over the last week or two? Anything that maybe's been a play on or play against situation that you've seen pop up?
I'm not taking too much away from those games. I'm just going to put right into it. But I did watch some of it. I didn't bet any of it. Sixers looked like they had a little bit more cohesion. Lakers look like they have great chemistry. And Bobo looked nice for the Nuggets.
Yeah, and one takeaway, too, before I forget to mention, is we're watching the Kings. Their defense has been bad all year. I thought their defense looked tremendously bad once again. So we'll see how that plays out. That was one little takeaway I saw. Rob, what were your thoughts? Any looks into the NBA preseason? Anything you could take away from it that might help going forward?
Yeah, I think the coaches and teams treated it just like a preseason. We saw minutes start off a little bit slow, then we saw them extended, and then for some teams, we saw the Stars' minutes totally eliminated at the end. So it's hard to take much away from what we saw, except that, most teams feel like they're ready to go at this point. I think that everybody's used to the situation in the bubble. Everybody's used to the courts. We'll see how quickly, Steve, they get acclimated to these times of games.
Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit on last week's show that NBA players' clocks just aren't geared for early Eastern time starts. And we're going to see some of those right away this weekend. So it may have an effect on how we bet totals, how we bet sides. But certainly early starts are one side of the handicap I'm going to be looking at.
Yeah, it's an excellent point because, this is almost like the NCAA tournament that we didn't get is the way I'm looking at it, because obviously we got night games tonight, 6:30 and a late game, but we're going to have some daytime games. They're going to be back-to-back during the days going forward, and it's going to be like watching the NCAA tournament almost for multiple days. So it's kind of cool in that regard. It's going to be great from a betting perspective. We can roll our wagers over, roll the bankroll over, get a lot of value from the daytime and nighttime games, but it is going to be tricky, and the travel will not be a factor, but the no rest situations are going to be an extreme factor like we've never seen before. And I just say big picture too, it's going to be interesting to see which teams toss the towel before others, because can't imagine a lot of these players want to be there at all in the bubble. 7-footers sleeping in 6-foot-long beds, cockroaches in these motels and stuff we've seen over the past few weeks. So I think motivation is going to be a bigger key than we've ever seen when handicapping these games. Tony, any takeaways from the preseason? Any general thoughts going forward here in the regular season?
You just made me feel right at home. Short beds, cockroaches running around. We listen. It's a big deal in my neighborhood. We're betting on the cockroaches the last 3 months because that was the only thing to bet on. I think that everything's different. Everything is different, and that's our jobs. We're paid to assess and project and predict. What is it? What is it? Is this time off? Was this good for LeBron? One of the things that I handicapped in LeBron late in the season is that this guy hasn't had a day off seemingly in 100 years. He seems like he's been in the playoff every year. Those kind of games take your toll, especially on a guy that's he may only be in his early 30s or mid 30s, but he's a lot older than that physically. I think we all know he's a lot older than that. Is Morant going to be who he was during the regular season in this bubble? Is Zion going to be active for this game tonight? Is he not going to be active? What kind of shape is he going to be after missing 12 or 15 days, whatever it is in the bubble? And there's a lot of things. He and I like to see. Skee has his Lakers jersey on. Is Anthony playing Can he see? Can he shoot more than 5 feet out? Or maybe he's just in there to protect the rim and slam dunk. And when LeBron's not in the game, no Rondo, who's going to handle the ball? You guys, there are a lot of questions that the preseason didn't answer for me, at least the practice games per se. However, I'm a confident guy. I believe I have the answers, and there's a lot of. I think there's a lot of value in specific situations, and I'm betting I'm right.
Yeah, and I think one thing we have to take away, guys, too, is the difference between these play-in regular season games over the next week or so and then the actual playoffs. You know, teams like the Clippers and Lakers tonight are set. You can make an argument seeding doesn't matter as much as it had in years past because there is no home court advantage. I mean, obviously, you might want to play certain teams over other teams, and that's really the only way the seeding comes into play, I think, because there's no 4 home games, 3 road games advantage from being the higher seed anymore. You know, and I also think that, you know, the play-on teams over the next week could be the worst teams that are remaining in the league right now because they have more motivation. I'll tell you what, Skee, I'll ask you each a quick question. You guys think that being in Orlando makes any difference? I know they're all in the bubble. It probably doesn't, but just quick around the horn, Skee, any play-on, play against because the Magic are at home, semi-at home?
No, I don't think it makes that much of a difference for them. I think everybody's in the same boat in this one. Everybody's in the same kind of rooms and everything. I think everybody's in the same boat. They're not going home to their regular homes.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I haven't seen anything that would make me think otherwise as well. I'll tell you what, let's go around and we'll start looking at some future picks. We'll dig into the 2 games here a little bit later. First, I want to remind everybody out there, WagerTalk.com. That's where you get the best bets from all these guys. My plays will be up there as well. I'm joining the WagerTalk team as well. I'm going to start posting baseball and basketball best bets here by this weekend. Skee's got a big best bet on the front page right now at WagerTalk.com. Rob's got his coming for Friday. Stay tuned. Check it after the show. You get that advanced winner. Tony Finn's best bets there as well. Multiple sports. WagerTalk.com. One-stop shop and get some big winners for this entire NBA season. Also some great packages there for the full season. Baseball, basketball, even football coming up. Some great all-sports value as well. WagerTalk.com. Skee, I'll start with you. You got your Lakers jersey on. Is that your pick to win the West? Maybe give me a I'll tell you, we'll start with the West since I said Lakers, and maybe we'll go to the East after that. Give me a pick or 2 for the West you think can win the conference and maybe a sleeper or a value play as well.
Yes, to win the West or to win the championship is the Lakers. And to make the 8th seed in the West, I'll say that one. I'll say Pelicans. And I'll give you one more. Tony's going to like this one.
Yeah.
Win total under, I think it was
5.5.
5.5 Clippers.
That's it. Same thing with the Lakers under 5.5. I agree.
Yeah, I might take the other side of that one. But yeah, the Clippers, interesting call, Skee. What are your thoughts there on that Clippers under? I mean, why is that a play against for you?
I don't think they really care about this season. I mean, the little 8 games that much. They didn't all season long. They're low management. Why are they going to give it full go right now for the 8 games?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that leads into the matchup tonight. I mean, I don't see them all of a sudden being motivated for the regular season finales either. I guess you could have a little concern with the Lakers, though, as far as going forward also, because they're pretty much locked in, to a top seed in the West. Pelicans are an interesting team to mention. I think a lot of sharp money feels that way with Zion. He wasn't there for a majority of the beginning of the season. That team's a lot better, obviously, than their overall win-loss record. So all these play-in teams that we have going over the next week, I would say the Pelicans are a lot better than their record compared to teams like the Wizards that are short-handed. Orlando, who doesn't really, as you said, have a home court advantage, even though they're in Orlando. There's no fans there. They're still in the bubble. Rob, we'll stay in the West here for now. Who are some teams you're looking play against teams in the Western Conference going forward?
Yeah, I didn't particularly take much interest in the future board, Steve, but I will say this. Obviously, the 3 of us have talked quite a bit for the last month about this futures board, and I think at least Skee and I were in agreement that the Pelicans are a team to watch out for. You have to be cautioned about playing them to make that 8th spot simply because, and I'll bring this point up again, if Memphis goes 2-6, New Orleans has to go 6-2. To take that spot. If Memphis can win 3 of 8 games, then the Pelicans have to go 7-1. So every game from a Pelican standpoint is going to be a desperation spot until the point comes, perhaps, that they are mathematically eliminated. Memphis has a more difficult schedule. Certainly the Pelicans got the benefit of the schedule here and it's not impossible. I'm just saying that Memphis doesn't have to do a heck of a lot to hang on to that spot, having a 3.5 game lead heading into this 8-game sprint.
It's an excellent point, Rob. And, although they might be the underdog in a lot of games, they're going to be playing teams that aren't as motivated as they are. So even though they're going to be the inferior team, doesn't mean they can't get 3 or 4 wins there. So, yeah, the Pelicans could go 6-2, 7-1, and still not make it, like you said. And that's an excellent point. One thing I'll point out, guys, is, as I said earlier, I think motivation is going to be more important than ever when handicapping these games. Even during the regular season, the regular NBA playoffs, when teams get down, say, 0-3, they almost always get swept. The odds makers know that. They jack the point spread 3 or 4 points on game 4s. We see that in the NHL as well. I think we have to be very careful here, maybe next week or so, once these bubble teams no longer can make it. So if Memphis gets a few wins and the Pelicans know they basically can't make it even if they keep winning, boy, you got to be careful, because we already saw Zion leave for, personal reasons out of the bubble a couple weeks ago. Can't imagine he wants to be there if they have nothing to play for. So it's going to be very interesting, the dynamic once teams become eliminated here over the next week from, future contention. Tony, what are you looking at in the West? I'm sure you got a big play on the Lakers, big play on the Clippers. What you looking at?
I don't have a big plan on Lakers. Hey, here's to everyone's comments so far, and yours too, Steve. I agree. Listen, I think only early games. These early games make all the difference in the world to specific teams. You've mentioned Memphis. I do not believe, as Skee is stating, he believes that the Lakers are taking this seriously. I couldn't disagree more. Any one seed, both these top 1 seeds could get. They're not the one jockeying for positions in the seedings. Now, our seeding is important. Well, I think if I'm, I don't know, if I'm the second seed in the East, I'm more than happy to face Brooklyn in the first round. However, we don't know if Brooklyn's going to be that 7th seed. That's a pretty volatile situation as well. I have huge questions about the Lakers. He likes them for the championship. Without LeBron, even when Rondo was healthy, I thought if you look at the points per minute when LeBron was on the court compared to when he's off, they have no one to handle the ball. And if you're facing a team like the Clippers, who can play defense, who was, I think, in the last 8 games of the regular season, Mr. Skee Profit, were 10 points better per 100 possessions than any team in the league. 10 points. That was on 8 games, small sample. That's pretty significant. Now, they were 10 points better. 10 points. They are more balanced. They're deeper than the Lakers. I can't say that now. They also have the best pick and roll combination in basketball. The best, without question. They're, the 6th man of the year in Herald. They're the best pick and roll combination in NBA. Name one better, and I'll argue with you on it. I don't believe the Lakers give a shit. And same applies to Milwaukee. I think everything in this, if we're going to handicap and give our clients position, at least opportunities to make money, it's going to be on the bottom seeds. It's going to be the 6, the 5, 6, 7, 8 seeds, and those fighting for the 8 seed. That's my opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean, speaking of Milwaukee, Tony, they're 7.5 games ahead, or actually, 6.5, right. 6.5 games ahead of the 2 seed Toronto Raptors. So they basically,
what are they playing for?
They can basically lose almost every game and still be the 1 seed unless Toronto runs the board, which is unlikely. So, and then on top of that, as we've said, they don't have home court advantage anyway. They don't have an extra home game by being a higher seed than Toronto. So why risk anybody getting hurt or anybody getting injured over these next 8 games? It is definitely the preseason for Milwaukee. You look at, the Lakers. The Lakers are 5.5 games ahead of the Clippers. Yeah. I think tonight, it would make sense, come out hard tonight, win the game, and then you're 7.5 ahead, right? Because you're going to pick up 2 games on the Clippers if you win tonight. So you basically lock up the 1 seed by winning tonight against the Clippers. So some interesting dynamics, to say the least. Skee, I'll let you respond to Tony, and also maybe give me your thoughts on the Eastern Conference while you're at it.
We're going to disagree all so long. We can talk about the Lakers when we get there. So I'll let it get to that. I'll let Tony have it for now.
What are your thoughts on the East, though, Skee? I mean, obviously Milwaukee's the team to beat. But by the way, guys, one thing that worries me about futures, and I think, Rob, you mentioned you hadn't played any. I really haven't either. Injuries always screw you. You're always safer with the under on any future, NFL, anything. Tom Brady goes down. It's a huge difference. You can't predict injuries. But now we've got the whole can't predict positive COVID test thing. And as we've seen with baseball, just 3.5 days into the season this past Monday, a couple games are canceled because the Marlins especially get an outbreak. I know the basketball has done a better job with this bubble. Maybe that'll make the difference, but it's hard to me imagine that at some point somebody's not going to have a positive test. They'll be asymptomatic. They won't even feel sick, but it's still going to send shockwaves. And the disadvantage to the bubble is if it breaks the bubble, then it's going to really be a problem, more so than baseball where they're spread out more. So, when you're betting futures also, guys, you're betting that somebody doesn't test positive for COVID. And what happens if the Greek freak, test positive for Milwaukee or LeBron for LA? I mean, basketball is so dependent on single players more than any other sport. It's another reason I've at least stayed away from futures as well. Skee, what are your thoughts on the Eastern Conference? I mean, obviously Milwaukee looks like the team to beat.
I'm not the biggest believer in Milwaukee. I mean, they look like the same team as last year, and they were stopped. So they can be stopped again this year. Giannis still can't shoot the three consistently, so he'll have the same problems this year. I'm not a really big believer in Philadelphia because I don't trust Brett Brown, and I don't really trust Ben Simmons in the clutch. I would go Celtics or Raptors, and if I had to pick one right now, I would pick the Raptors simply because the Celtics are a little bit undersized, and I'm unsure of Kemba's health.
So you like Toronto still, you think, even though they're not the same team that beat that won the conference last year and kind of dethroned the Bucks, do you think Toronto still has what it takes? And you mentioned the Celtics. I think Sixers and Celtics both are live sleepers in the East personally. But Skee, do you think the Raptors still have what it takes, even being a little shorthanded this year?
Yeah, I mean, they just lost Kawhi. They're all champions. They've all been there, and they're the team who stopped the Bucks, right? So why can't they do it again? I know Kawhi played a big part, but all they have to do is build that wall. They have a great coach. Other teams like the Sixers can't say that much. They don't have a coach, so I like it.
Yeah, and last year I definitely played against the Bucks. I liked the Raptors against them last year, and one of the reasons was the Bucks had never been there before. They overachieved. They're in uncharted territory. Now they've been there again. They're going to be the 1 seed for the second year, it looks like. Question is, have they learned anything, or are they still that young team that barely made the playoffs a couple years ago for decades, that are all of a sudden the 1 seeds? Rob Veno, what do you think? Eastern Conference, what are you looking at?
Yeah, I don't know if everybody's getting the same effect here, but it sounds to me like Tony's running his 900 sex phone line again. I get this deep breathing in my headset here throughout this show. Tone, you got to ease up a little bit, buddy. You're
listen, I'm old.
I'm
old. All right. I'm old, but I'm wiser.
It's going to turn into an erotic show. We're supposed to be talking NBA.
Tony, that sounds good right there. That second part, right, it sounded good. When he first came on, it was pretty loud. But, hey, look, Tony forgot the NBA season started. His side business can be put on hold now. No pun intended, put the 900 business on hold. And, Rob, you and I have been around long enough. We remember 900 lines for the sports industry. Skee might not have been born yet when we were doing the 900 lines. So it's been a while.
They were a big part of the business back then. But let's get back to, because I'm going to hop right on with Skee. We talked about it last week. If there's a team other than the Bucks that are going to win the East, I would believe it's a Toronto Raptors. I don't think there's a more motivated team than the Toronto Raptors. They've got the size. They've got the fast break ability. Remember, this is a team that kind of changed its colors this year, and I think they led the NBA in fast break points per game as we went into the shutdown. So they came out firing on all cylinders again. A lot of comments about how they want to run, how they want to score. The depth, like I said last week or the week before when we were on, the stance that these guys took during the 3-month shutdown to get better, whether it be offensively or defensively, player by player by player, and the fact that, the coaching staff thinks that this team is really ready to roll here. I know one guy, Pascal Siakam, did not touch a basketball for 3 months, and when he came back to practice, they thought he looked outstanding. So perhaps he needed to rest more than to work on his game. But boy, these guys have really taken to hanging on to that championship. I know Fred VanVleet has stated that's their number one goal here. If there's going to be a team to knock Milwaukee off in the East, I think it would be Toronto. They've got all the pieces to match up.
Yeah, and how often have we ever been able to say the defending world champions are motivated? It's almost the exact opposite normally. Normally you worry about that letdown when a team like Toronto, who had never won a championship, kind of like the Washington Capitals a couple years ago in hockey, they get that big championship. You always feel like, how could they possibly have that hunger? But, yeah, after you're losing Kawhi Leonard, it's almost like they're a hungrier team because they want to prove that they're still great. And I do feel like motivation-wise, they have more motivation than the Bucks, who have not even won it in recent history. So it's an interesting aspect. And as I keep saying, I think motivation is the key to handicapping the next few weeks and even the playoffs. You know, in the past, when teams get down 0-2, they go back home, they adjust the line 5 or 6 points, because Game 3 home teams are always a strong play down 0-2. That's not going to be the case anymore. In fact, we might see teams tossing the towel already in Game 3. They'll definitely toss it in Games 4. So, yeah, motivation, and the Raptors do seem to be as motivated as anybody, which is very important. Tony, what are your thoughts on the Eastern Conference overall?
Well, I think, first off, again, I think it's pretty important. Milwaukee, I believe wholeheartedly is not going to do – they're not going to take whole lot of risks as far as player personnel goes. They're going to be the number one seed, barring, the whole team testing for COVID-19 and not being able to play. And it's a big deal, really. I think it's a really big deal between the Boston and Miami. In a sense, Boston and Miami fighting for that third seed. I know that Boston will look late. We could talk about the early games being important. They are important. Where it finishes is just as important, although I think point spread wise and gaming wise, there's not going to be as much value or favor as far as my handicapping style goes. But I don't believe Boston wants to face Philly in the first round. I think it makes a big difference. They have absolutely zero answer for Embiid. None. They have no big man. I don't believe they can win they might be able to win the East. They might slop into a championship where they somehow win Game 7 of the finals, and then they're completely done as far as I'm concerned when it comes to facing the West, whether it be Portland or whether it be the Lakers. I think Boston would be done. The other team's more capable. And for me to do the futures, I didn't do any futures simply because much of what you outlined, Steve, and that is this is the scenario and basically in the background for this season is much different. One positive test can eliminate a team if it's an Anthony Davis, for instance, or the Greek Freak, as you mentioned. In this situation, these 8 games we're going to have are going to be fun. They're going to be telling. But the NBA traditionally, when we get into the playoffs, when it comes down to the semifinals and the finals, historically it's been favorites. You don't see a lot of 50 or 40 or 50 to ones. You don't see a 22 to 1 Washington Nationals team winning a World Series. You don't see that in the NBA. You just don't see it. So let's get past the 8 games. Let's win a few of these for our clients, and then it gets really interesting. But I still think we, barring this COVID-19 and a positive test, you're going to see the favorites in the finals of this NBA. And of course, that caveat's out there that can change it. But we only know that day to day, right?
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up, Tony, about favorites in the NBA. And I say this year after year, you see less upsets historically in the NBA playoffs than any other sport.
That's right.
And there's a couple reasons. I mean, first of all, it's a 7-game series. The cream normally rises to the top. So unlike the NCAA tournament, which is a one and done, Baltimore County is not going to beat Virginia 4 out of 7 games, but they can beat them in a one and done. We saw that happen. But then you say, well, the NHL and Major League Baseball has 7-game formats. Exactly. But the difference, like the Nationals, is a team can be carried by pitchers.
Right.
Hockey, a team can be carried by a goaltender. And that is what happens normally because they're much lower scoring games. Hockey has 5 goals, baseball playoffs, 8 or 9 runs, NBA playoffs, 200 plus points. So with that many points, the better team is going to pull ahead after 48 minutes and in a best of 7. So that's why, you normally want to play favorites. So there's no value with the long shot futures like we normally have. And then you worry about a guy like LeBron or, the Greek Freak going down. Then there's no value now with the favorites anymore. So, yeah, I think the only way you play a future is one of these team total wins that Skee referenced, like Clippers under 5.5. Because if you already like the under, you like it already. And then there's some upside if a guy gets hurt or two or if the team, ends up having the virus. So, yeah, I think the only way to play the futures is if you can find some sports books let you take the no. But, most of them, you can only play the yes, a team will win the conference or win the title. So unless you're going to play the no at big juice normally, or you're going to play the under, probably better off just picking your spots. And one other thing I'll say about for the viewers out there about futures, you're normally better off, too, doing just a money line parlay if you like a team. And more so than ever this year because you can always stop it at any point. So if the virus does hit your team, you can just stop it. So take a $100 wager and just money line parlay the Lakers or whoever you like to win it. game after game in the playoffs. You normally get a better payoff, and you can hedge it at any point, and more importantly, you can stop at any point, especially if the virus takes out LeBron all of a sudden on one day's notice. So, just some things to think about with the futures. But excellent points all around, guys. WagerTalk.com, WagerTalk.com. That's where all these best bets are. Skee's got a big one on the front page right now for Thursday night action. Rob Veno's got a strong best bet for Friday ready to go. Tony Finn always working hard. He and I work into the late night hours. Both Tony and I will have some best bets on Wager Talk for baseball, basketball, all the sports going forward every day as well. WagerTalk.com, your one-stop shop for winners. And guys, isn't it more fun to watch a game while you're making money? Just makes it even that much sweeter. Hey, Skee, speaking of tonight's games, let's dig in here. We'll go about 10 more minutes, guys. We'll dig into some games here in the final few minutes. We got only 2 of them tonight, but they're big ones. National TV, 6:30 Eastern, the first game of the rebooted season here. Utah Jazz, New Orleans Pelicans. Skee, what are your thoughts on this one? Just some general thoughts.
Well, Jazz are a team that they're up and down all year. Weren't quite sure what you're going to get on any given night. Pelicans, they had a stretch where they played good basketball, and majority of the reason why was because they were healthy, and they're fully healthy now. They have motivation, as we were talking about earlier, to get that 8th seed. So every game extremely matters to them. I like the Pelicans in the spot. I'll have to pick the Pelicans.
Yeah, and by the way, right now, viewers, Pelicans are about a 2-point favorite. Total is 227.5, a high total.
227.5. Yeah, yesterday, 220.
Exactly.
220,
a lot of money.
Talk about that, but it's a whole other program, isn't it?
Yeah, no, Tony, go ahead and weigh in on that. I mean, definitely spent some money on the over. What are your thoughts?
Well, we talked about this, a month ago, guys, when we were doing just one show, NBA show a week, that I had already made a play. And Rob will comment on this because Rob said, yeah, I agree. It was 219.5.
Wow.
And I played over the 219.5. Now, Rob, as soon as this show's over, I'm gonna call my best friend, Mr. Bookie, and I'm all over the under. The same amount of money, I'll take that 9-point middle, and I will sit back and have a cold one and say, I don't care. I'll take 20-1. Give me 20-1. I'm rooting for 20-1.
Yeah, Rob, he's only got about a 20-30% chance of catching that middle. Not bad. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, no, we talked about it, as Tony says, probably 5 weeks ago when we first saw lines. We were both on that as a personal bet, 219.5. Game over, because it just looked, when you look back to where these totals were, Steve, before the coronavirus shutdown, to see 219.5 on any New Orleans Pelicans game was, out of the question. You just weren't going to see that number. So individually, we both took advantage of that. And Tony said at the time, this game is going nowhere but up. And it went up like a rocket ship. I see 228s out there now. As a matter of fact, 227.5, 228. No Bogdanovich for Utah, which is a big part of their offensive team. So perhaps not even perhaps, it's not a question for anybody who's been involved in sports gambling, a veteran of this particular industry, that you go ahead and you go for the middle tonight and take under 228. Find something in the mid 220s, you got a real good shot. But the Zion news, once he came back.
Rob, one quick.
Go ahead, Tone.
That is only this, and that is a lot of weekend warriors or Joe Publics will say, "Hold on, you're taking 20 points plus points away from the scoreboard with Bogdanovich. How can you possibly play the over?" Well, take my word for it. Quinn Snyder, and please forgive me, all Quinn Snyder fans, not the sharpest guy in the world, in my opinion, not even close to being the best NBA coach, but he has no choice at this point in time to play at pace. There's just absolutely no way that he can sacrifice points for defense. And I fully expect to see this game up and down the court. It's going to be fun to watch. But even under 228, my middle under, I'm kind of worried about it a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tony, you probably don't want to take the whole play off, because unless you like under 228, you should leave a lot of it on the over, because you have, say, every point's worth, say, 3%. You've got about, I've got about a 70-80% chance of winning that over bet. So you definitely don't want to middle out. You just want to middle maybe a teeny bit, if at any at all, to be honest. You really have to somewhat like the under, because I always tell people that when hedging, unless you like the other side of the bet, you really should leave most of it on, unless it's a huge payday, like a 50-1 ticket or something.
I have to apologize for interrupting you, Rob, but one more thing, and I'll let you have the floor back, and that is this, and that is here's my deal, and when it comes to hedge, my nickname, what is it? It's the hedgehog. I hedge everything. I cannot stand giving away, not that this is free money, but I can't stand away giving that kind of value, regardless of what I think and how I feel or any biases I have, Steve, is that there's been, I can tell you right now, that about 44% of the time, what I feel and what I think are wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say with hedging in general, unless it's a season-changing, life-changing payoff like a 200-1 ticket.
Yeah.
Unless if it's just a total like this, unless you really like the under, you should only put a little bit, if any at all, because you're giving up a huge edge with that over to try to catch a middle, which the under the line maybe is 50-50 right now. So that's how you have to look. Rob, Rob, what are your thoughts on hedging in general, and what are your thoughts on that game tonight, Pelicans Jazz?
Yeah, and real quick, guys, with the advent of in-game wagering,
Good point.
you can hedge around that way as well, and as opposed to full game wagering. The better play, let's make this clear to everybody watching here, the play by far on this game was the over 219.5. There's no question about that. Tony's right that the Jazz are going to move the ball a little quick up and down the floor. I mean, Jordan Clarkson has been lineup as maybe the main cog to take Bogdanovich's place, and we saw a little bit that on display during these exhibition games where Utah's been faster. So for New Orleans, I'll say this, guys. Since every game is desperation mode for the New Orleans Pelicans, they'll probably, and they show at times they have the ability to, they'll probably look to play a little more defense, especially in half court, than maybe what was displayed by overall statistics the first part of the season. But I don't know if that's enough defense to necessarily keep this game under 219.5. 228, a different story. I would take a little bit of money on under and see if we could win both ends. But again, in-game wagering, to an extent, Steve, it takes that hedging part out of players' repertoires nowadays, because you can just go along as the game goes along, see the flow and play the flow.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an excellent point, Rob. In-game wagering really is the future of sports betting, and we're seeing it over the last few years. And another great point you just bring up there is that you could see how the game is playing out. You could see if you're on the right side or not early on, because mathematically, Tony is tremendously on the right side right now. He's got an 8-point cushion on that bet, assuming that the closing line is the accurate line. This game is going to close 228, maybe even 229. So he's got a huge edge, but we'll see how it plays out. There's a lot of uncertainty with these games, obviously, because this is the new normal that we're living in, and we're getting the reboot tonight. One thing I want to point out real quick before we get to this last game, guys, and wrap up the show is when we were talking about the Sixers, one thing that jumps out to me about the Sixers, 29-2 at home this year, 10-24 straight up on the road. So, the road records are going to be interesting. These are all neutral court games, but you would assume a team that's really strong at home but much weaker on the road, which some would be at a disadvantage probably. Something's going right for Philly at home this year, whether it's the crowd getting into it finally, intimidating the officials, booing Santa Claus, who knows what it is. But that was the one that really jumps out. And the reason I thought about it talking about the Jazz tonight is I always feel like the two home courts that have a real edge in the regular season are Denver and Utah because of the altitude and the no-rest situations. So Utah's another team to keep an eye on. Maybe they're not quite as good as their overall seasonal stats. Make sure you rely on the road numbers. And just pulling up Utah's numbers this year, 21-10 home, 20-13 on the road. So they've actually been a very good road team, whereas a team like Denver, 25-8 at home, just 18-14 on the road. So, just something to think of when handicapping these games, another factor. And by the way, the Sixers are currently the 6th seed. They're tied with Indiana, though. The Pacers look like one team to me that is not motivated to be there. So I'd be shocked if Philly doesn't finish as at least the 5th or 4th seed. They're 2 behind the Heat for that 4th seed. So I think if Boston stays in the 3rd spot, they will avoid Philly, as Tony said. And I think that is very important. Skee, let's look at this last game real quick. I have a feeling who you like, but give me some details on the Lakers and Clippers tonight. I'm seeing Lakers about 5.5, 219. By the way, the only total that is higher than that Utah game is tomorrow. The Rockets-Mavericks currently at 229. So even Houston is barely higher than that total tonight. That's how much that line has moved. Lakers a more modest 219.5 or so, 219, 5.5 Lakers are favored. Skee, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so this Lakers team is a little bit different, and we heard what Tony thinks about it. Tony doesn't like it at all. He thinks that it's a lot worse than it was. I disagree. I think this Lakers team is a lot better than it was right now. And the reason, like things we were missing, we didn't have extra playmakers, and we didn't have somebody who can create their own shot. We have both. I don't know if you guys, the last scrimmage game, Tony said he watched some of the scrimmage games. I think he said J.R. Smith, 6 for 7 from 3. Dion Waiters, 18.6 assists. That's stuff that the Lakers need. That's who's going to score and who's going to provide off the bench. And especially tonight, Clippers don't have their guys. I don't think Clippers are going to care so much about this game at all. I think it will be mostly offense, not so much defense like we saw the past games where it was like a playoff type atmosphere. I think it'll be more points, and more so in the first half than second half. And I like the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers currently 5.5 ahead of the Clippers, who are the 2 seed. So they win this game tonight, they'd be, 6.5 at least. So it pretty much wraps up the 1 seed for them. So you would think if you're going to make an effort, why not come out hard now and then rest your guys next week instead of having to scramble next week? So if the Clippers are lacking motivation, that could be a bad sign here. 5.5 Lakers are favored. Tony Finn, we'll wrap it up. What do you think of the Lakers Clippers tonight?
Well, I don't think much of it, to be completely honest with you. There's so many question marks as far as more so for the Clippers than the Lakers. I will say that. We all know that Rondo's not playing. We don't know if Anthony Davis is playing. And I would normally say, listen, Anthony Davis is playing. This is absolute crap, but that they're saying he's a question mark. However, there'd be plenty of reasons not to play Anthony Davis tonight. There really would, because this game means very little. So with those questions, Steve, it's an easy pass for me. An interesting watch, but an easy pass.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be a fun game to watch. And, just watching these 2 games tonight, guys, will give us some information tomorrow and going forward. I mean, it's important to watch these games really just to see how this season's going to play out. We're going to pick up some stuff that wasn't available in the preseason, little intricacies. Every team's going to be different. But, the way these games flow, we're going to definitely get some great information. And this is what makes professional handicappers, because we're not going to be relying on computer numbers and data. We got to look at these games. We have to handicap a situation like we've never seen. They're in an isolated bubble. They're all neutral court games. You can't factor in motivation by running back tests for the last 10 years on situations, because all those have to be thrown out the window. And viewers, I bring that up because this is where you get real value with professional handicappers like Skee, like Rob Veno, like Tony Finn at WagerTalk.com. I'll also have best bets up there starting this weekend. Once again, Skee's got a huge best bet for tonight on the front page right now. Rob's got one lined up for Friday. Tony and myself have best bets every day, baseball and basketball as well. WagerTalk.com. Guys, we're going to wrap it up here. It was a great show. Let's look forward to a great opening night. And we will be back tomorrow, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern live here on Friday and every weekday going forward. So once again, check back tomorrow, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern live here on this channel for more NBA tip-off. Thanks for joining me, guys. Good luck tonight.
I'll bring my bank card tomorrow, Skee.
Woo!
Bring your